Welcome to Teaching Truth. Back from the brink. That's the very apt theme for our reflections this week as we dig into the rich soil of Genesis 47 to observe how Joseph, used of God, pulled a nation back from the brink of the great famine that there was, a famine that was described as a severe famine. In our opening reflections yesterday, we thought about the position that Joseph found himself in. The position he found himself in was that he was facing a severe famine, and he had to do something about it. And in our reflections today, we want to think about the presentation to Pharaoh and the fact that Joseph presented his father Jacob to Pharaoh. Genesis 47, verse 7. How did Jacob bless Pharaoh? Because that's what the passage actually says. Perhaps he entered the room of the palace with his hands raised, deeply thankful for the opportunity that Pharaoh had afforded to him and was affording to him and his family to survive the years of famine. Jacob would not only be aware and fully aware of God's sovereign control in all of these circumstances, but in the back of his mind, he would also be mindful of God's promise to his grandfather Abraham. I will bless them that bless thee. Now just pause for a moment, because Pharaoh was considered to be a direct descendant from the sun god Ra, R-A. But here was an old man, Jacob, 130 years old, a Canaanite, blessing him, that is, blessing Pharaoh, a direct descendant from the sun god Ra, but blessing him in the name of the one true God, the one who is the only God, the one who created the sun, the moon, and the stars. Joseph's father Jacob was blessing the king. He was blessing the king. He was, as it were, shining a godly light. He was being that salt in a decaying society. He was pointing to the one who is the one true light. But notice what then Pharaoh does, because Pharaoh does what is not considered to be acceptable in many societies and cultures around the world. Certainly not here in the UK. He asks, "How old are you?" How old are you, Jacob? The lifespan on average for the Egyptian people was 110 years, and therefore there was a respect for those who exceeded 110 years. Jacob would have been looking after livestock for most of those 110 years, and therefore, having spent his lifetime under the sun in the desert, he would have looked his age. His skin would have been wrinkled and crinkly. But Jacob gave a direct answer to a direct question. And as Joseph listened in on this conversation, he would have been impressed with not only the brevity of life, but also with his father's description, few and evil. You see, what sadness Jacob had passed through in his life, the death of his beloved wife Rachel, the supposed death of their first son Joseph, and then the actions of his sons on various occasions, acts of immorality and cruelty. And yet, Jacob was still there at 130 years of age. Jacob was there, an old man, blessing the great Pharaoh. I think that those of us who are parents can take Joseph's experience with his father before Pharaoh as a challenge to us. Jacob commenced his encounter with a blessing. He spoke about the brevity of life, the burdens he had borne, but nonetheless could conclude with another blessing. Do our children see us being a blessing to others? Do our children see us blessing, encouraging, saying good and godly things of other people? To the Pharaoh's small p in our culture and in our society. Are we like Jacob, salt and light? Jacob was salt and light as he came into the presence of the great Pharaoh. He pointed to the one who is light. Do we point to the one who is light? There is much, I think, that we can learn from Jacob's example and Jacob's presentation before Pharaoh. May we, like Jacob, be those people when we encounter other people, the great, the good, the last, the least, and the lost as well. May we be those people who would be salt and light and speak well of and bless others.